What's up, Snow Tracks Nation? Thanks for joining me here in Sherbrooke, Quebec at Ski-Doo's training facility, where I'll be joined by Robin Martel, Global Product Manager, and Mary-Eve Sear, Product Specialist, to talk about some of the most anticipated new sleds in model year 24 and answer some questions that we've got, and most importantly, some questions that you yourself have submitted. On deck for this video is the MXZ 850 Turbo R competition package with shot. Let's get to it. Okay, so Robin and Mary-Eve, what I want to do first is just cover the general overview of this model right here, the one we're talking about, the 850 Turbo R. So why don't you just give me a brief overview? What is this sled?
Well, this is, of course, a product novelty for model year 24. Probably the star of our product launch, and there's quite a few interesting things on this sled. And start off with, if we look at the shock package, for example, you'll notice right away that we got those boosted Kashima shocks, 40 millimeter in the front with the easy adjust system, and also on the rear, 40 millimeter. So this sled has got ultimate capacity just to start off. And of course, I think the most interesting thing on this sled, of course, is the turbo. So this year, we're bringing the turbo to the trail, 180 horsepower, and also with other technology in there. We can talk about that in a little bit more detail, and a few other things on this sled that make it really special. Of course, it's inspired by our competition package that we have. So it's racing inspired, and we have cool features on it, for example, like the rail reinforcements to make it like super tough. So yeah, we're really excited about this sled, bringing it to the market, and of course it's going to be a great vehicle for enthusiasts, you know, those riders wanting it all.
The most hardcore of the most hardcore riders?
Yeah.
Is that who we could probably argue that this is targeted at?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the closest sled to a snowcross sled that we've created. So of course, this is really targeting the most hardcore riders that we have. Yeah.
Well, I know you've got a lot of those. I've met them. Okay, so let's talk about one question that we have a lot of people ask, and I've been very, very curious about myself. And I've ridden this, and I've ridden the mountain version of the Turbo. What are the technical differences between the 850 Turbo on the trail and the 850 Turbo on the mountain? Now, I know they're the same platform, same basic architecture, or maybe even identical, but there's got to be some differences. You can't just pull one and throw it in a trail sled and go hit full throttle, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is exactly the same engine. The very big difference is really the water injection system. So this really, it allows the engine to really have its full 180 horsepower thanks to a methanol blend. Yeah, it is technically the same engine. So.
Yeah, and it is the same, like Marie-Eve just mentioned. Of course, the other 180 that we have in our mountain sleds is working in an altitude setting. Here, when we bring this to sea level, we have different parameters coming into play. So when we have wide open throttle moments and, you know, doing those lake runs, other factors coming in also with the ambient temperature. Basically what's going to happen is we're going to have more heat in the engine, and to keep things down, to cool down, and to make sure that the boost pressure is always adjusted accordingly depending on those conditions, we're introducing an industry first water injection system. We see this sometimes in the automotive industry, but in the snowmobile industry, this is a first. And what it does basically, like Marie-Eve just mentioned, is giving that 180 horsepower all the time. It's not going to be taking the liquid, every time you press on the throttle. But let's say you're doing a wide open throttle session for, after 4 to 10 seconds, then it's going to kick in, and then you're going to keep that 180 horsepower. The competition, what happens, they keep it's always constant, the boost pressure that they keep. So after a while, it's going to come down a little bit because things are heating up too much. This one is going to keep its 180 horsepower constant.
So I have a question about that. Why do you need the ethanol injection system at sea level? Why would it benefit, or why do you not need it at high altitude?
At high altitude, we already have a lot of power going on there, and of course, the turbo is always kicking in when it's needed, and the type of riding is very different when we're talking about a mountain setting. If you know, doing a wide open throttle in a mountain setting for long amounts of time rarely happens, and there's always a lot of stuff going on. The type of riding is really different. Whereas in trail riding sled, of course, it's more, you know, you're more speed focus, going down these dynamic trails with curves and things like that, and having straight runs also. So that's why it makes sense, you know, to have this system in there to make sure that it always has the power all the time, because it's going to happen. For example, lake runs, you know, we have a lot of riders doing this, and with this technology, they're going to have that power at the tip of their fingers all the time.
So it's safe to say that the water injection system is only required at sea level because of the long duration full throttle pulls. That's where the heat is generated. That's when you still need to start cooling your intake, and that's what the system problem that it resolves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And with the basically the algorithms, they're measuring different parameters within the engine. And of course, as soon as the heat starts to build up a little bit too much, that's when it's going to solicitate the water injection system to come and cool down things, and having basically the perfect temperature to be able to deliver the full 180 horsepower.
Interesting. Okay, so this next question, actually, a lot of these questions, because this vehicle is so new, are questions we got from our viewers, though we do have one specific one that we want answered. But in this case, explain to me a couple things. It's going to be a multifaceted question. Explain to me what's special about the XPS fluid that you need to run in this and why it's special. And then talk to me about usage. So how much can a person expect to use? I know there's an ambient air temperature sort of equation that's built into there, along with duration of full throttle pulls, but why do you use that fluid? Why can't, a lot of people say, well, I'm just going to use washer fluid. Can't do that. Don't do it, right? So why do you need to use XPS, and how much can a person expect to use in a season of average riding?
I think the main three very important thing about this methanol and water blend that we have in the XPS is that it is anti-freezing, anti-corrosion, and anti-foaming. So it was really designed specifically for our engine. And yeah, I mean, depending, it's a bit hard to say how much, you know, the amount of liquid that they will need, but...
Yeah, that's a super good point, and it depends on the type of riding that you're doing. You know, what, you know, how aggressive you are, how fast you're going. Are you doing always these, let's say, lake runs and racing against with your friends or things like that? We did do some evaluations on that, and before I get into that, just mention that, you know, you're asking, can we use something else in there? And, you know, I mean, the way that we designed it, and with the ECU, I mean, if you're using something else, it's just not going to work, because there has to be some specific conditions that are met. And if, for example, you want to put in a windshield washer in there, and it starts, no, just don't do it. And the algorithm is going to detect it, so you're not going to get, it's going to derate, basically, if you're putting something else in there. I mean, the computer is going to figure it out, and it's not going to kick in with the full benefits, and then the 180 horsepower, when it gets too hot, is going to, you know, come down a little bit, and then after that, after a while, it'll come back. But you have to use that ICE XPS that we have to make sure that the performance is optimal all the time.
Honestly, I find it shocking when I read comments from people about, oh, here's what I'm going to do, and I'm not going to buy that stuff, when they're buying a snowmobile that is literally the top of the line snowmobile Ski-Doo has ever built. One of the more expensive models, if not one of the most, because of the technology, and they're going to worry about buying a little jug of fluid
Yeah,
to
exactly.
make it work perfectly. Like, guys, you've already spent your money, man.
You know, it's about $25-30, you know, for that jug. And honestly, like, we did do some tests, and you know, it's about let's say 700 kilometers that you know, you'll have to fill up the 1.2 liter tank in the back. You'll probably fill it up maybe five times and take one jug during a whole season.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not It's not that much. And then again, it depends. You might not take any at all.
Exactly,
It depends
because you
on
don't
your
use
type
it
of
all the
riding.
time. Yeah, the system doesn't use it all the time. It's really when there's like peak high power usage, like you said, like lake crossings or back-to-back acceleration. So
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit more specifically. When does it call for the water injection fluid? When does it need it, and how is that affected by outside influences like air, temperature, and things like that?
Yeah, so it depends. Again, it's really when the temperature gets too hot at the intake. So basically, this is going to be influenced by your type of riding for sure. It's going to be influenced by outside air temperature for sure. And then that affects, of course, the density of the air. So to be able to keep that optimal at all times, that's when, like I said, depending on the ambient conditions and a lot of other parameters, between 4 and 12 seconds, it's going to kick.
Full throttle.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's going to kick in. That's when it's going to kick in, and it might kick in at the 12 or at the 4, but it'll depend. Are you on a spring day, or are you at minus 25 degrees Celsius?
We live in lake country at home. There's a lot of full throttle runs,
Yeah.
and I think that probably in our usage scenario, we would go through more fluid than most people would because of the constant lake running. I'm very curious when we get this on the snow for a full season to find out how our usage scenario racks up, and based on what you're saying, I don't think it's going to be a shocking expense to add to my vehicle by the
So
end
you
of the
did
season.
you did try wide open throttle.
No, I didn't. Of course not. No. Yes, and it's scary fast. It is so fast. And I think the thing about it that really impressed me that your engine crew has done such a great job on is create a motor that, while it has so much horsepower and it is turbocharged, there's no point in the power curve where you feel a surge of power. It's completely linear from tip in all the way to full throttle. It is completely linear, and it was very impressive. Mark always likes to call things like it's smooth as a sewing machine or something like that.
Yeah.
And it really is, so very trailable. Now, of course, the consumer who's going to be interested in this sled is obviously looking for ultimate performance, but along with ultimate performance comes a lot of different factors like lightweight and like technology. I mean, lots of different technology and high performance features. So you guys have come up with a really interesting way to make this particular sled super lightweight while still maintaining all the features that we come to expect. So what is the feature that we're talking about here?
So obviously the sled has the shot starter. So we did go for this because exactly it keeps the weight down compared to an electric start. It keeps off the weight of the battery. So this was really ideal for riders looking for a very nimble and lightweight riding.
One cool thing about that, those that aren't familiar with the shot system in the trail, this is the first that we're doing here. And as Marie-Ève mentioned, really a weight factor. So we added in the turbo, and we wanted to keep the sled basically the same weight as a naturally aspirated engine. So taking out the electric starter, bringing in the shot starter in there, just made sense for this package. So that's why we put the shot in there, and it's super easy to operate. I mean, you just crank it up once at the beginning of the day, and then the capacitor, of course, is going to bring in, keep that energy, and then after a few minutes, you can stop it, start it, just like an electric start engine. So those that aren't familiar with that, that's a really cool feature that we have on Ski-Doo snowmobiles. The other thing that we added in this package, of course, we're going super fast. You're coming into a corner, so you got to slow down.
You gotta
so
brake.
we added in a 4-piston brake caliper on this package, so super performant. And super performance oriented, and also with the adjustable brake lever, just makes for great ergonomics coming down the trail, and coming in fast into those corners and having full control of your sled.
How come all brake levers aren't adjustable? It makes so much sense, and when you use this one, it's like, oh, this is what they all should be, and it just doesn't make any sense why we haven't done it yet. It's something that every snowmobile should have, and I will say that 4-piston brake caliper changes the way a Ski-Doo brakes drastically. It actually gives you all kinds of feel and tons of power, excellent modulation. I was really impressed with that upgrade. Shot obviously is a super cool piece of technology, but the fact that you managed to put a turbo on a 2-stroke without any weight penalty, a lot of people don't understand that Shot doesn't require an electric starter. So the motor itself, which is just a big chunk of metal, or a great big battery.
Yeah.
The capacitor is fairly lightweight. The wiring is almost nothing. Everything's already in the engine that you need. So there are a lot of components that are missing. obviously a lot of weight, and you've managed to produce a snowmobile that gives you 180 horsepower with no weight disadvantage. So I think that's pretty darn impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this is a question that we all want to know, and I'm very curious because I feel like maybe there was an opportunity here, but why did you only release the Turbo in the competition package? And a secondary question to that is, why no Smart Shocks?
Well, that's a good question, and I mean, you know, first off, we're always listening to our customers and looking for feedback. But this is a new technology. This is the first time that we're bringing in this Turbo War in the trail segment, and we wanted to do it, you know, in the most, let's say, the most controlled, but controlled way too.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's why there were limited quantities for this. This is a limited build for this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we had just under 1,000 sleds, you know, available to the market, and the people that are going to get it next year are going to be lucky people for sure. But that's the main reason. And at Ski-Doo, we do a lot of tests when we're doing our product development, and we always want to make sure also that when we bring novelties to the market, that we do it in the most planned way possible and make sure that we do things right.
So why no Smart Shocks? That's one I've heard quite a bit.
And that's a good question. I mean, why no Smart Shocks? But this is basically, you know, like the 600R competition package that we have in the MXZ. It's really inspired by that.
That's what you were saying earlier.
Exactly. It's the very closest, you know, sled to a race sled. So obviously that's why there was no Smart Shocks on it for this year. But
you're anticipating people are going to hit bumps really fast.
Yeah.
So you need the biggest, heaviest duty shock package.
And these babies here, I mean, the 40 millimeter Kashima coated, you have the easy adjust, the 3-click easy adjust system there. So they've got ultimate capacity. Really awesome shock package on there. And, you know, we're always listening to our customers, listening to feedback, and yeah, we're excited, of course, to see the impressions that people have on this sled next year for sure.
After having ridden this with those shocks in the front, there's just something about them that make this sled ride and handle, I think, in the front end better than anything else you've ever built. There's something about those Pro 40s that just, I don't know, it's some kind of magic voodoo that's going on, but that is the best handling Ski-Doo snowmobile I've ever ridden. I think you made the right decision.
thank you.
Yeah. Okay, this is another one that everybody wants to know. Everybody loves launch control. Vern even uses it as his ringtone on his phone. You know, it's probably one of the coolest features that you can get on a snowmobile. From my perspective, though, I don't understand when it's actually really useful, because I used it and I think you could dig a trench to lay like your water pipe for your house using it, because it just is so aggressive. Other than the cool factor, how do you see launch control being useful? And if it's just for fun, just say that.
I mean, especially with the new gauge that we have, just the launch control is very easy to use.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all very well indicated also in the gauge. I think this is something that users were looking for. But I mean, for the rest, it's a nice feature.
It's definitely, you know, we brought that in, you remember, a few years ago with the MXZ. So we wanted to bring it here, and I think this is the perfect sled to have that.
Yeah.
And why do we have it? I mean, because it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Good. I'm glad you just said that.
It's really a lot of fun,
right. Yeah.
and plus, when you activate it, you're getting really the optimal conditions for the most awesome acceleration of your life. I mean, you've got to sit on that sled, and then you've got to activate it, go through the steps. It's super easy. The way to activate it, you go with the hub, hold on the brake, press on the throttle, and then it's ready to go. The ambient temperature of the muffler goes to 750 degrees Celsius. Everything is optimal for the best hole shot of your life. Let go basically of the brake, hold on to the handlebars.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I'm talking about it, I get goosebumps. I mean, it's so much fun.
It is fun to use, no question. And I don't know that you can put enough studs in the track to actually get traction with that much power coming on all at once. It just spins like crazy, but it does pull harder, I think, than just a straight stab of the throttle. So it also sounds cool. I think if you're lined up beside your buddy on the lake and you got that,
it's just revving up.
And he's going to be afraid.
You got it at the 3,800 RPM, you know, that's where it goes up and it's ready to go. And then after that, you let go of the brake and it's...
So how does it work? How are you allowing a person to hold it full throttle without it engaging and taking off? What system are you using?
It's really, the engineers would be better placed to tell you the magic behind that, but it's all controlled basically by the computer, and we have to make it, of course, usable and user friendly, and that's why with the gauge and the steps that I just explained, you know, and using the brake and the throttle at the same time, you really got to respect the sequence. And then it puts everything in tune in the engine with the intake and everything, and the exhaust, getting everything in perfect balance to have the perfect hole shot. So that's what it's all about.
I know it sounds a lot like the systems used on snowcross sleds to warm the engine on the line. Now, they don't use it as launch control, but you always hear them before they drop the flag running, and you hear the same sort of noises.
And it's inspired by that.
Okay.
When we developed it, it was inspired by that, for
Interesting. Sure. Okay. So now this brings us to our user question. And this is, okay, so Dale, can I get this right? Dale 434464 Terry asked this question. How many miles, or what would you say the lifespan is? I'm paraphrasing his question, but it's legitimate. Before this engine is going to need an overhaul. What's the life expectancy?
That's a bit of an impossible question to answer. Quite frankly, it really depends of how the rider maintains his sled and his engine.
So maybe a better way to ask this question is, compared to the naturally aspirated 850, how durable is this engine? Because the 850s are durable engines. Yes. Everybody knows that. They last and last.
Well, yeah, in that sense, and Marie-Ève, you got it 100% right. I mean, we can't give you a number. It's impossible to answer. One thing I can say, for example, with the water injection system and this amount of HP that we have in this engine, it's making it more reliable because it's keeping things always under control, under the right temperature. So at the end, with the technology that we have in there, we're making sure that the engine is going to be able to operate in optimal conditions, not overheating or not having too big of variances within the engine conditions, and the water injection systems really contributes to that.
So more than just being able to maintain 180 horsepower at full throttle for long pulls, the water injection system is actually
helping the reliability of the engine.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I've got for you on this model. This is probably the most exciting snowmobile Ski-Doo's ever released, I think. It's certainly a two-stroke that makes 180 horsepower from the factory. If you're not excited by that, you probably should go to the doctor and get checked out because there's something wrong with you.
And we could talk about it more, but yeah, it's, like you said, super exciting snowmobile.
So thanks so much for talking to us about this vehicle. Again, I think this is one of the most exciting models Ski-Doo has ever built. Certainly 180 horsepower two-stroke on the trail is nothing to take lightly, and I'm super excited to have a whole season on it. Thank you guys for watching. Keep in mind this is only one of a 4-part series of these virtual hangouts we'll be doing on Model 24 snowmobiles from Ski-Doo. So make sure you stay tuned for all of those, and if you haven't, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything else that we're producing in this series. Thanks for watching.